Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Schmidt Ocean Institute dive number 716 of the ROV Sebastian off of the research vessel Falcor 2. We are very excited to share with you today. We are currently sampling some seafloor sediments, again, with push cores and fiber cores, and we are offshore of the town of Chaiten. And in this particular location, there's a little bay in which two different major rivers enter right through Chaiten and to the south of the town of Chaiten. And we are sampling the southern side of this bay. So very close to a river called the Yelcho River, Rio Yelcho. And we really want to understand how the sediments and the subsurface vary within this basin. So thank you for joining. We've got a lot of folks in the room. We've got some very capable ROV pilots. Chris is right now operating these lovely push cores that you're seeing. Ooh, he's smooth. Very smooth here. No plopping. He said he can do even better than this. Oh, this looks good. Let's record that it's got a great sediment-water interface, meaning that the very surface sediments of the seafloor are well preserved in this core, and we can get a nice sample of the water just above it, which is great. We also have our outreach coordinator, Sophia, at the helm. And we have another ROV pilot sitting in the PIC seat right now, Scott. Yep, we're hoping we get some Scott-sized fiber cores here in a minute. Full 2 meters. Not Chris size, sorry Chris. He likes, he's in on the joke, right? Doesn't take it offensively. And I'm Dr. Rebecca Chaiten from the University of Alabama. Thank you. And roll Tide. So right now we're sampling these sediments to try and understand exactly where they're coming from, where they're going. Got some active currents in some of these areas that we want to understand better. So I'm a sedimentologist and micropaleontologist, meaning I study the sediments and the little tiny bugs within. And we've got quite a few people in the room here behind me. Let me first introduce Dr. Seb Watt, who you've heard from a lot on this particular expedition. He is our fearless leader, chief scientist from University of Birmingham in the UK, not in Alabama, not to be confused. And this is really my audio okay? This is really his dream, what we're doing right here, flying to the bottom of the seafloor and taking samples of mud, and hopefully that mud will contain layers of ash. Because he's most interested in the history of volcanism in this area. And in particular, what we want to find is this 2008 eruption of the volcano, also called Chaiten, just near the town of Chaiten, here in southern Chile, in northern Patagonia, on the Pacific side of South America. We also have, we have my student Jacob.
Hello.
Yeah, fresh master student, getting a lot of experience. Oh no, note that Jacob on the log, it's plopped out of the bottom. And Chris has made a great executive decision to try and wash this out and get a new one. Oh, it's too bad. It was looking like a good core. And we also have Jill Pelto in the back of the room. She is our artist at sea. Yeah, say hi, Jill.
Hi.
And Jill has been making some amazing artwork, basically capturing everything that we want to sample here, all the complexities of how we deploy gear from the ship, not just the ROV Sebastian and all these awesome samples we're taking, as you can see on your screen here, but also some of the other ways that we are taking samples from the ship, including a CTD, which means conductivity, temperature, and depth. It's a rosette of these water bottles. Yeah. And it measures salinity and temperature and other parameters like turbidity of the water and where we have highs in chlorophyll, indicating where we've got a lot of phytoplankton taking action, producing food within the water column. And then we also have a grab sampler, which is like a claw that we deploy off of the back deck, as well as a gravity core. And she's been capturing all of this in her amazing artwork. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. So we're really lucky to have Jill in the room documenting this, but also helping us communicate our science through visual media. Okay, and who else do we have here? Oh, we have our Spaniard in the room. Ivan is here with us, and he is a postdoctoral scholar.
Hola.
Hola. You want to introduce yourself? You haven't talked yet. Have you?
It's the first time.
Please introduce yourself while we collect this amazing push core, and maybe say what you've been doing. You've been splitting a lot of cores and looking for ash. So maybe you can explain to our audience in Spanish or in English.
En Spanish.
In Spanish, please.
Okay.
What you've been doing.
Mi nombre es Iván Suñé Puchol y yo soy de un pueblo cerca de Tarragona, en España, cerca de Barcelona. Y vengo de la Universidad de Roma, de la Sapienza, donde soy investigador en vulcanología. Y mi parte aquí en el equipo de científicos es abrir y ver los sedimentos, abrir los vibrocores que el Sebastián, el Rob, está mostrando en el fondo marino, y estudiar las capas de sedimentos, intentar identificar niveles ricos en ceniza, lo que les llamamos la tefra layers, y así poderlos estudiar y conseguir reconstruir en cualquier modo la historia eruptiva de los muchos volcanes que tenemos en esta zona del mar de Chiloé, como es el Chaiten, que estamos estudiando en específico su última erupción, pero también otros volcanes activos de la zona, como el Corcovado, el Calbuco y otros. Y bueno, estamos recompilando la mayor número de datos posible, sacando los testimonios del fondo marino e intentando leer la historia que nos cuentan las diferentes capas de sedimento que encontramos allí.
Perfecto.
Gracias.
So Ivan has been opening these cores. I'm not sure if everyone could hear the English speakers. Perhaps I'll give just a little bit of background on what I've been seeing him do in the lab and on the back deck. So he's been helping a lot with the coring devices. We had some really great grab samples that he was helping with.
Yeah.
He is also Scott size. He's also very tall, and that helps a lot. And then he's been helping opening the vibrocores and looking for ash layers, looking for tephra layers throughout this coring area, up in the fjords, up in the Rellenkavi fjord that we explored. Only one fjord. I don't know why I said fjords. I'm hoping we explore all the fjords, but there's only one in our study area. Yeah, and then out in the Gulf of Vancouver, and then here in this area closer to Chaiten. And we have some really excellent ash layers that we have found.
Encontramos, sobre todo en la estación 4 y la estación 12, donde pudimos sacar un testimonio de sedimento de aproximadamente 1,20 m, encontramos una capa que resaltaba mucho, un gris claro brillante, que luego cuando montamos láminas delgadas para observar los componentes bajo el microscopio, pudimos certificar y comprobar que era muy rico, era prácticamente el 90%, eran espículas de vidrio. La ceniza, lo que se conoce como ceniza volcánica, en verdad es el magma que cuando erupta, se enfría, erupta explosivamente, se enfría en pocos segundos en la atmósfera y el vidrio es el resultado. El vidrio volcánico es el que nosotros estudiamos a posteriori también para tener la composición química y de esta manera identificar en los sedimentos marinos que encontramos, porque cuando abrimos un testimonio no podemos tener idea de qué erupción es ni de qué volcán viene. Por lo tanto, lo que buscamos es como su pasaporte, lo que se llama el fingerprint, la huella dactilar. Y eso nos lo da la química. Y lo estudiamos con microanálisis en laboratorio, con instrumentos como la microsonda o laser ablation, para saber su composición química, los elementos mayores y los elementos traza. De esta manera, como cada erupción tiene su composición química que es inigualable, ninguna otra erupción tiene la misma, es como las huellas dactilares de la persona. En eso la podemos identificar y correlacionar hacia su volcán de origen. Y esa capa gris es hasta el momento la que hemos visto en algún otro, así repetidamente en diferentes sondeos, y la que en llegar al laboratorio queremos, aparte de otras, esta en específico vamos a estudiar para intentar identificarla, y eso nos va a servir como una guía, como un marcador estratigráfico en todos los sondeos que lo hemos encontrado. Hoy, si se puede, si hay tiempo, en estas estaciones donde la estratigrafía ha sido bastante diversa y rica, intentaremos estudiar el sedimento marino con otro instrumento, uno que se llama el Gravity Core, que ese es un instrumento para sondear hasta más profundidad, que podríamos llegar a recuperar hasta 3 metros de sedimento y ver si de esta manera poder descubrir y poder subir hasta el barco otras capas de ceniza y poder reconstruir hasta un tiempo más lejano, más remoto, yendo atrás en el tiempo y ver si encontramos más erupciones.
Gracias, Iván.
De nada.
Yeah, so the composition of these sediments that we're finding, especially the volcanic clastic sediments, is so important to understanding which volcanoes they come from, where they come from. There's a lot of different sources, a lot of different volcanic differences. So some volcanoes may have more silica, some may have more iron and magnesium. They have really different characteristics. And so when we look for these ash layers, tephra layers in these sediment cores, we can actually do what's called provenance to find which source they come from. Okay, so what you're seeing here is we just got 3 wonderful push cores, and since the biology is a little simple here, I wouldn't say boring, biology is never boring, we are just moving on to vibrocoring there.
Parece que vamos a conseguir un vibrocore bastante profundo. Puede que superemos el 1,20 m, por lo que estamos viendo en pantalla.
Last little bit. All right, so what you just saw was our excellent ROV pilots basically pushing, I think it's all the way in there, right about. Any resistance? No resistance. So we just pushed it in most of the way, and then we're vibrating the very last part. And I think that looks good. That's all the way in. I don't think we're getting through the mud facies. Yeah. So I think the reason why we don't see much in terms of benthic communities here, meaning we don't see a lot of pretty organisms on the seafloor, we're seeing mostly mud with holes in it, is because this is really rapid sedimentation here offshore of the deltas near Chaiten. And so we've got a lot of mud in this area, which we're all a little bit disappointed in. We were hoping to get some resistance on that vibrocore, hoping to get into some more cohesive units, some more hopefully older units that might have that ash layer within them. So a lot of what we're doing here in this area that's virtually unexplored until now, is trying to map the different seafloor features, the seafloor topography, also known as bathymetry. It's like a bathtub that we are just now exploring and mapping from the ship. And then we can go down and get views of the seafloor with ROV Sebastian and take samples of it. And what you're seeing is science in real time. This is us making discoveries that the mud is present in some places, and it's really, really, really thick, and it's not present in other places. So a lot of that has to do with the speed of the water flow, the current velocity over the bed, and how these sediments are reorganized and distributed, or I should say distributed, and then reorganized in some cases within this marine environment. What we're learning, just in a nutshell, is that it's way more complex than we thought it was. So we're having to do a little bit of exploratory work to try and find where the best places to sample are. And ideally, what we're looking for is the 2008 Chaiten eruption event within these sediment cores, which should be layered like pages of a book. We go back in time with each layer in the subsurface, going down from the very surface of the seabed, farther and farther down below the seabed, stepping back in time. We're having some trouble with visualizing the vibrocore here. I want to make sure we pull it up over the very bottom. And so part of the problem here is that the ROV is sitting on a very soft seafloor, so it's sunken in a little bit, and we can't quite see where the base of the vibrocore platform is, what we call the guillotine. So we don't want to just pull it laterally without knowing we've gotten it completely up over that platform, that base. Yeah, so what we're hoping to see is evidence of that eruption, ideally in like a tephra layer, an ash layer that's lighter in color that reflects the different chemistry of the Chaiten volcano, of this particular eruption in 2008 that caused massive destruction of the city of Chaiten. I should say the town of Chaiten. It's a very small town. It's about 4,000 to 5,000 people living there today. They had to evacuate the entire city when this happened back in 2008. It was a very scary moment for the country of Chile. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I'll be right back.
All right, so while Becky has gone to run and grab something, I can talk for a couple seconds about the history of the vibrocore, and then Yvonne could probably continue to talk about his research. Our vibrocore, little fun fact, has actually been in development by SOI for about 5 years, primarily by Jason Williams, who's one of our engineers on shore. And we had a pretty long testing period earlier this summer, in between two of our cruises where we first deployed the vibrocore, but this is the first time anything like this has been used in an expedition. So we're actually really excited about it, and yeah, it's exciting to see the new technology. And I think Becky's back, so passing it back to her and Yvonne.
Thanks so much, Sophia. Thank you for explaining how unique this particular expedition is with our coring capability on the ROV Sebastian. I had to step away for a minute because we are working on processing the samples that we brought up from the last dive. Some of the push cores, sometimes they come up a little bit empty. So we have to make sure we have enough for everybody, for the geologists, both those studying the nature of the volcanic eruptions and their source, and for the those that are studying grain size and sediment dynamics, and also the biologists who are studying all the critters that are living within these sediments on the seafloor. So it may look really boring at the surface, the seafloor, but actually, if you can see, there's a few holes kind of poking out from the seafloor, and that likely indicates that there are a lot of organisms living within the sediment, what we would call infauna. They're living inside of it. It's really hard to know if you have nice full push cores, if you've got limited visibility. So we had a lot of murky, turbid water on our last dive, and that's one of the issues that we're contending with, but I think we got it all sorted. It may be funny and unusual to most people, but we are all very interested in mud, and we have to make sure everybody gets enough mud to do what they need to do. Did you want to make any comments on that, Ivan?
Yes. The point, lo que comentaba Sophie antes, es bastante novedoso, ¿no? Somos afortunados porque es la primera vez que el SOI y el Falcor 2 estrena el Vibrocore y podemos sacar pues sedimentos de las profundidades del mar desde la comodidad de aquí del laboratorio. El robot, el Sebastian, baja y en vez de solo subir los pushing cores, que son pues más cortos, unos 30-40 centímetros máximo lo que estábamos recuperando antes, ahora pues tenemos la suerte de poder subir con más de 1 metro, llegando a 1,20 m, 1,40 m de sondeo con los testimonios de los sedimentos del fondo marino. Y es la primera vez que esto se puede realizar, gracias pues, a los ingenieros y a todo el equipo del Schmidt Ocean Institute. Y bueno, ahora mismo el brazo del Sebastian ya ha podido desenganchar el primer tubo metálico de aluminio, que esperemos esté bien lleno de sedimentos, pero como comentaba antes la doctora Becky, no han notado mucha resistencia mecánica en cuanto a los materiales del fondo marino para que el tubo metálico pudiese penetrar, pudiese perforar debido a la vibración. Por eso que esperamos que va a estar bastante cargado de material fino, limos, barro. Esperemos que haya un poco de estratificación y a ver si conseguimos encontrar tefra, porque lo que sucede en este mar interno de Chiloé es que hay mucho aporte sedimentario de los ríos y hay una tasa de sedimentación muy alta. Entonces, en pocos años se acumulan grandes espesores de sedimento y pues como más profundo podemos llegar, más viejos son los materiales que sacamos, y es muy importante el trabajo que hacen los compañeros del equipo geofísicos mapeando el fondo marino para poder conocer mejor la batimetría, que vendría a ser la orografía del fondo marino con sus montañas y sus cuencas, para intentar cazar, elegir lo mejor posible el lugar donde estamos perforando, donde estamos sondeando, para recuperar los testimonios de sedimento. Ahora ya está cerrando el mecanismo de seguridad para que no se nos caiga al momento que sube el robot a la superficie, porque son un par de centenares de metros, a veces un poquito más, a veces un poquito menos, y luego procederá seguramente a recolectar el segundo sondeo dentro de estos tubos de metal.
Gracias, Iván.
De nada, un placer.
There's one more person who I haven't introduced yet, who is a marine biologist, Diego Droguet, de Universidad de Valparaíso. Diego, do you want to introduce yourself and say what you're seeing, whatever you're seeing here with marine biology and what you hope to see if we were to sample for marine biology in this region?
Bien, gracias Becky. Bien, primero me presento, mi nombre es Diego Droguet, soy estudiante de Biología Marina de la Universidad de Valparaíso, en el centro, la zona central de Chile. Estoy actualmente cursando mi último semestre, escribiendo mi tesis, y me encuentro realizando estudios de la macrofauna bentónica junto a mi compañero Gianluca Fedele. Específicamente lo que queremos averiguar en este crucero es ver la fauna, los invertebrados que se encuentran tanto por sobre el sedimento marino como también por dentro, que es llamado epifauna e infauna respectivamente. Bueno, aquí en las imágenes se puede apreciar un fondo como con muchos agujeros. Esto puede indicar la presencia de varios organismos que viven enterrados dentro de él. No se puede apreciar mucho organismos sobre la superficie, pero sí se pueden ver algunos animales que componen el krill, que son parte del zooplancton. Pero también se puede ver como poca visibilidad, entonces es poco lo que se podría como apreciar. Bueno, y en las últimas puntos de muestreo hemos visto una alta diversidad de organismos marinos invertebrados, principalmente poliquetos, que estos son los gusanos submarinos, y es lo que al menos yo y mi compañero nos especializamos más. Esto lo hemos venido estudiando desde el año pasado, haciendo nuestro seminario y ahora realizando nuestra tesis, entonces nos podemos manejar un poco más en la identificación taxonómica de estos organismos. También hemos visto muchos tipos de crustáceos, como los anfípodos, cumáceos, taneidáceos, ostrácodos, y también nos ha parecido particularmente curioso que hemos encontrado muchas especies de estomatópodos, que son más conocidos como mantis marinas o mantis de mar, claro. Estos tienen una particularidad de ser los organismos con el golpe de puño más fuerte del reino animal, pudiendo llegar a incluso ebullir. Ha entrado últimamente una estrella canasta, que es un ofiuro en realidad muy grande, que es característico un poco de estas aguas de Chiloé. Hemos también visto ecosistemas relacionados con los corales de agua fría, que son corales aislados, a diferencia de los arrecifes de corales que se encuentran en los mares más tropicales. Estos corales se encuentran más solitarios y no forman colonias, pero sí pueden albergar un ecosistema un poco más diverso. En esto se podrían ver más equinodermos, como los erizos, estrellas y ofiuros, y también, por supuesto, más poliquetos, anémonas, entre otras especies de también moluscos. Podemos ver un pulpo el otro día, un pulpo chilote, y eso es más o menos lo que nos ha aparecido. Durante los últimos días también hemos tenido actividades de Ship to Shore, que es donde los compañeros que tenemos encargados de la divulgación científica van mostrando los laboratorios y cómo es la vida acá a bordo hacia algunas escuelas e institutos de acá de la zona y de parte del mundo. El día de ayer tuvimos la oportunidad de recibir la visita de estudiantes de acá de la zona de Chaiten y de sus alrededores de educación básica. Habían niños de entre 7 y 16 años y fue una actividad muy fructífera para nosotros poder enseñar hacia otra gente que no está relacionada con el mundo de la ciencia, poder abrirle un poco más los horizontes y poder enseñarle lo que nosotros hacemos. Y fue una actividad muy bonita y muy enriquecedora.
Gracias, Diego.
Gracias, Becky.
Yeah. 14:38:41.
14:38. Okay, gracias, Diego. And hello, Lawrence. I hope you're feeling better. Miss you, buddy. Okay, so what we're doing right now, what you're seeing is the ROV Sebastian. We just took 3 push cores, those little numbered sticks that you see right in front of you. And then, to the bottom right of your screen. Then there's the ROV arm, the robotic arm, kind of in the middle of your screen. And then to the far left, we have a rack of aluminum tubes, and those are our vibracore tubes. And so we've just taken one vibracore, the one that's sort of at the top of the screen there. And we're getting ready to take another. So we've put it on the rack, or we've taken it off the rack and put it on the vibracoring device on the platform. We've picked up off the seabed, moved over a little bit so we can get a fresh surface, and we're setting back down. And as you can see, this is really, really muddy, murky water here. Yeah, and Brenda, thank you for commenting. There are a lot of little fish, little krill, that are enjoying all the nutrients released here. And you can see a little krill going across the screen, the smaller screen in your upper right. Not quite as many as we saw earlier today, on the sites earlier today. Okay, now it's starting to clear a little bit. So I think we're almost ready. Okay, now we are pushing that aluminum core tube down in through the sediment, and we're just gonna push again, see how far we can get just by pushing. So that mess of cables that you can see in the upper right screen, that is the vibracore. It's a vibrating machine, basically, that we have that clamps onto the aluminum core tube and shakes it. And shake it really hard or shake it kind of softly. But by shaking it or vibrating it, that can actually allow us to get into deeper sediments on the seafloor, harder sediments that might be a little bit coarser, more sandy or gravelly. But what we're seeing right here is actually got a lot of mud. So it's pushing in. Are you guys feeling any resistance, Chris or Scott? None. We're just pushing it in. We don't even need to vibrate it here because there's so much mud. And what we were hoping for here is actually a little bit of mud at the top, but some more resistive units below. Hoping to get into some units that might be recording the Chaiten eruption of 2008 and even before that, going farther back in time. But we shall see. We shall see what it looks like when we bring it up. So we're just pushing it in. You can see that that drive, that vibrating drive there, coming up to the top of the metal core tube, the aluminum core tube. Just gonna grab it right there at the top. It can be so precise. This is really amazing. Just for reference, again, this is really an amazing capability that we have. As somebody who's been working in sedimentology and stratigraphy for multiple decades, I won't say how many, it's quite amazing to be able to view. Yeah, okay, now we're shaking it a little bit. We're vibrating it. It's got a lot more resistance here. Maybe we're getting what we want here. We're really having to push it down. It's great. We are still in the bay, just offshore the town of Chaiten. We're offshore of 2 big deltas the Blanco Delta that goes right through the town of Chaiten, and the Yelcho Delta that's to the south. And we are closer to the Yelcho. Full penetration, that's great. That's what we like to hear. And a little bit of resistance there at the end. This might be the one, guys. All right, we're carefully taking notes on this. We want to, every time we take a core, we take a lot of notes on if we encountered any resistance as it was going in, but importantly, how far it went in. That's what we call recovery. So we've deployed a 2-meter core tube. It looks like we have almost full recovery, like 90% of the tube is filled up, which is really great. We've been getting better and better and better as we go along with the vibrocoring. Part of that may be due to the fact that the sediments are a little bit muddier, a little bit easier to get through here. But part of it may also be due to some of the modifications that we've made as we go along, trying to really optimize the device. This is the first expedition of the ROV Sebastian, in which, or of the Falcor 2, deploying the ROV Sebastian, in which we have this capability to vibrocore. Prior to this expedition, for those of you who have watched for a while, there was only the capability to push core. So this is new for everybody, and we're learning a lot. Each site we're learning something new about how to best deploy this new capability on the Sebastian.
That's close.
Okay.
Last little bit.
Okay. And again, we're just trying to lift the core tube up out of the sediment all the way before taking it off of the vibrocoring platform here and putting it back on the rack. Okay, we have a question here in the chat. Gianluca,
Yep.
are you good to talk for a minute here? Okay, so we're carefully taking notes, and we're also trying to explain what we're doing as we go. But we've got a great question in the chat. Thank you. How does one go into marine biology? How do you pursue a career in marine biology? Gianluca. You can do English or Spanish. Italian. Whichever you feel most comfortable in. Gianluca is a student at the Universidad de Valparaiso, and he is studying marine biology. Take it away.
Muchas gracias, Becky. Bueno, sí, yo soy Gianluca Fedele, estudiante de quinto año en la Universidad de Valparaíso, actualmente en mi último semestre universitario, realizando mi tesis, aportando a las contribuciones y la actualización de montes submarinos, planicies abisales y fuentes bastante someras de la placa Salas y Gómez, la placa de Nazca y el archipiélago de Juan Fernández. Ya principalmente trabajando con macrofauna bentónica, invertebrados, principalmente con la familia, el filum de los poliquetos. Bueno, yo entré a estudiar biología marina en un ámbito bastante diferente, bastante complejo, ya que entré en pandemia, tiempo de pandemia, clases online, muchas pérdidas de salida de terreno que la he podido recuperar con la experiencia que me ha entregado mi profesor de tesis, ya que es segunda embarcación que realizo. La primera la realicé el año pasado, donde se investigaron los montes submarinos de las islas Desventuradas y alrededor del archipiélago Juan Fernández. La carrera es bastante bonita, los primeros años igual son bastante pesados, pero cuando uno ya va encontrando el camino, va encontrando lo que a uno le gusta, lo que le va apasionando más, ya se vuelve todo más ameno se hace todo más sencillo, las ganas de estudiar aumentan, la salida de terreno también, y las ganas de empezar a aprender otro tipo de técnicas, otro tipo de arte, como de manera individual, incrementan de gran manera. Pero lo importante es mantenerse, estudiar, mantener la calma hasta poder encontrar un área en específico, ya que hay varias áreas. Yo actualmente estoy en el laboratorio de ventología, pero también hay laboratorio de condrictio, mamíferos, aves, algas, que son distintas especializaciones, zooplancton, plancton, y ya más también en el ámbito de la ecología, realizando distintos estudios de parámetros, pero eso principalmente, ya. Todas las universidades tienen sus ejes diferentes, todas funcionan de manera diferente, pero todas buscando el principal, como la estrella del show, en este caso, que sería el océano. La conservación de él, el buen cuidado y el conocer esta gran masa de agua que está poco conocida aún por el hombre.
Great, wow, that's pretty good, guys.
Oh, you know what? Hold on, if I measured from the ship. So close.
So close.
Okay, anyways,
Wait, so we are headed to...
Our next waypoint. We're going to pick up and head west.
we're looking at our floats, okay. That was the concern.
Yeah.
Just want to keep an eye on where our floats are.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, White.
We also now have a very capable marine tech in Vite, who's
Yeah, we're going to do a ship move. We're going about 400 meters to the north-northwest. So if you can just follow that marker till we get you in position for the next location, please.
Understood. Which speed do you need?
We'll start at 0.2 and see how that works for us. Maybe go to 0.3.
Did you want it?
Understood. Starting on 0.
Thank you.
No, seriously, like, we put them in, we just left it in the clamp.
Okay.
Put it down on the gate.
this should be fine.
It should, yeah, I mean, they have been
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how we've done it.
past several times.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you
If
want
you're
us to
happy,
spell
then
it,
I'm
it's
happy.
in there.
What's that?
Leaving the vibe recorder on the gate.
Oh, right, yeah, but we'll have to move it forward to next more.
If we have, we get to the other place, you want to take more of the
We want to take more right, of course, yeah, so it's whether it's easiest to put it away now.
Fix the one up in the other road.
Yeah.
But they're moving, so we might want to move now. Once we want to stop them, so they make a decision.
Like at the next site, we'd like to take 2 more, so.
Alright, we can.
Do you think it's more secure in the rack
Probably
or
more
on the
secure in
gate?
the rack.
Okay.
I feel like it's more secure in the rack.
Alright, we should go back down to see what that.
I'm being
positive-
picky again.
Bridge RV, can we pause that room for a moment, please?
Okay, pausing. Stopping 8.
All right, so you want to do that on the seaport?
Yeah, ideally,
Okay.
just in case.
Just because visibility was so crappy, we've had to do it up in
Yeah.
the column. The risk versus.
We are stopped.
Grab it. We can do it here.
Well, I'm 4 off, I'm coming down. And we're out of our dust cloud for a little bit.
Okay, so what we were just debating is whether to put the dishes away now or wait until the morning. We're moving. We're stopping for just a second to put the vibrocore back on the rack, and then we'll fly to our next site. Okay, so someone in the chat said that looks deep. We are in 120 meters water depth. So yeah, it's pretty deep. For marine geology standards and marine biology standards, we're in kind of a shallow area on the intercontinental shelf here, on the western side of southern South America, the Pacific side. Yep, we got a dust storm.
I'll come off like just a couple meters. Jump forward a little bit.
So we are moving that robotic arm, Sebastian's left arm, grabbing the vibrocore and putting it back on the rack. Getting a cool view of the seabed as well. There's really not much living on the surface. I think most of the organisms that we're going to find in this area are those that are living in the sediment. And we're only going to see it once we start bringing this mud to the surface and washing it to see what's living there. I miss you too. You're the best. And so, just for all the kids who may be watching, and adults too, I always say, when I was a kid, I grew up in New Orleans, and there's a lot of mud in that town, a lot of rainwater. Of course, New Orleans has just experienced a hurricane over the last few days. But I remember just playing in the water after storms, playing in the mud. Don't highly recommend playing in that water after storms. Don't think that's very healthy. But I highly recommend getting dirty, getting outside. And I made a lot of mud pies as a kid. We used to pump sand under the house about every couple of years, just because our houses were built on old marshland that would subside or sink down really, really rapidly. So we would pump sand under the house. And so I spent a lot of my childhood just playing in dirt and playing in sand. And guess what, guys? I get paid to do it now. So highly recommend, exploring, being curious, and doing what you love.
So one was empty, and it was holding the plant, and we had 3, 4, and 5 full.
Keep playing with mud pies.
First one I put into 1, and then took 3 out, and now put it back into 3. Just gonna get back into 3. Thank you.
Okay, so we are just making sure we've got all of our aluminum vibrocore tubes documented, squared away, put away before we get to our next site. Oh, okay, and Vite, our amazing marine tech, quickly becoming one of my favorite people, because he is so helpful, has put in the upper right hand side of your screen here a view from the ship. And this is what it looks like if you go on the deck of the ship. If we walk outside of mission control here just a few steps, this is what it looks like from the ship. And it's really, really, really beautiful. You can see that there's mountains here, volcanoes within those mountains, just in your view there. Oh yeah, and you can see on the left-hand side of that view, there's a little area sticking out. That is what we call the heliport. So if helicopters want to come visit our ship, that's where they land. We actually have room for a helicopter to land on this gigantic ship, the Falcor 2. So you're seeing a little pan of the landscape here. I can't tell, is Chaiten there? Are we looking at Chaiten? I can't tell where we're looking now. Can't see it there. Yeah, yes, now you can see the town. You can see the town of Chaiten, kind of right in the middle of two peaks there. And so that's the town that was very massively affected by the 2008 eruption of a volcano that's located just behind that view there, also named Chaiten. I think it's a little bit to the left. It's a little bit reddish in color, the volcano. I'm not sure that we can see it from this view. It's around the corner a bit. But you can see that flat-lying area just in front of the mountains and leading to the sea in the foreground there. That is where the town of Chaiten is located. And we actually were able to bring school children, about 100 school children from Chaiten and from surrounding areas, from the islands,
Yes. Well, can you answer him? It's closed.
on board yesterday.
Yeah, stay there.
Got some mud on the front.
Understood.
So Chaiten is not quite hidden. It's actually in the foreground. It's just very small in comparison to the huge mountains behind it. There's no skyscrapers. It's a smaller town. It's about 4,000, 5,000 people. All, one-story houses there. And buildings, other buildings. So we brought about 100 school kids on board from Chaiten, from other areas on the continent, here in southern Chile, and then from the islas, the islands that are very isolated. Many of these schools are just like small schoolhouses that actually have students of a range of ages in each school, and we showed them the science that we're doing. So like I was saying earlier, Gianluca really inspired a lot of kids. Gianluca and Diego are our marine biologists on board.
Big time. You might have to actually twist it.
Okay. So they were showing the marine biology, and then our students Mane and Jacob from University of Alabama were showing some of the microbiology, the diatoms and the forams that we're finding within the mud and within the water. And then, of course, we had our volcanologist showing layers that have tephra, ash within them, within these cores. And they got to see the marine geophysics lab, many screens, images of the seafloor and what's beneath that we can image acoustically. We're basically pinging the seafloor constantly with a device that we call the chirp because it sounds like a little bird. It's constant.
Ready?
Yep. I think we're ready.
Bridge RV, we can continue on that move, please.
Understood. Continue to move.
Thank you.
And then they got a tour of the ship, which I think was really fun. For some of them, they had never seen an elevator before, and we have an elevator on the ship. So some of them are quite nervous about taking an elevator ride for the first time. But what a unique experience for them.
Moving now at 0.2 of speed.
Thanks, sir.
I would say all in all, it was a success. Okay, so now we are ready to move to our next site. We've secured the second vibrocore, second of those long metal tubes full of sediment.
This is, an M3 survey, yeah.
Yes, can we please turn on the M3?
We're at -17. Fish like this, you ever see anything?
Yeah, do we want to do it
We can
again?
do it, but I'm just gonna warn you.
much weight do we know from the last one?
No, the last two that we tried, they still hadn't processed it. I mean, Matilda.
I don't think it's a key on this area. We've got.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not
Sure.
expecting local variation, right, really.
Okay.
What do you think?
We can do it. I mean,
I mean-
there's no problem if they're not. I'm just letting you guys know that.
Hola. Todos bien. We are still en route to our site. We've just taken a little pause for a moment to make sure we're not going too far from the ship. So the ROV Sebastian is tethered to the ship by what we call an umbilical, which is quite an appropriate term. It's feeding all the data back to the ship as well. So it's very important connection that we have, both physically and for data collection purposes. What's that?
An emotional.
Yes, and an emotional attachment. So we're keeping an eye on these floats that we put on the umbilical. They're bright yellow, large flotation devices that basically hold up the umbilical at the very closest part to the ship so we can keep an eye on where the ROV Sebastian is at any given time. We have all kinds of positioning systems on the ROV Sebastian, but we can also keep an eye on it by looking at the umbilical as it's floating just near the ship. Oh, and you can see in the upper left-hand corner, again, Vite, thank you so much. You can see there's swimming around, very happily chomping on all the material that's coming off of the ROV that we kind of kicked up off of the seabed, brought up with us. And as we're flying through this water column, you can see it's not so clear. It's kind of murky. And now we're showing a really cool view of the helideck. So this is where a helicopter could land on our ship. My first experience at sea was in my early 20s. I remember it was in 2009, going into 2010, the beginning of 2010. We were offshore Antarctica on a Swedish vessel, and the 2010 earthquake, tsunami of Chile happened. And in that area of southern Chile, Concepcion, just a little bit north of here, was hit really hard by the tsunami. And I remember everyone was worried about the two vessels that were in Antarctic waters at the time, but we were, and let me tell you guys, I just slept through it. It was just a big ocean swell that I slept through, but that was the only time I got to call back home in 9 weeks. That was a really unique experience. But the two vessels, the German vessel and the Swedish vessel, sort of had a little bit of an exchange, and their helicopter came to us and ours went to them. And that was a really unique experience, something I remember quite vividly. And of course, that 2010 earthquake affected a lot of people here in Chile. So actually, we've been talking about that recently. We've been talking about natural disasters in this area, not just volcanoes, but also earthquakes. There's so many natural hazards in Chile. It's a very active geological system here. There's several faults in this area. Of course, we have a major fault going north-south in our study area that actually created some of these systems that we're seeing, these marine systems. They preferentially follow some of these faults in the area. And then, of course, we have a subduction zone on the Pacific side of South America. So we have oceanic crust that's very heavy and dense that subducts, goes into the mantle below the continental crust of South America, the South American plate. And that's what causes the volcanism that we see here. So when you subduct oceanic crust, there's actually minerals within that oceanic crust that when you compress them and you change them through metamorphosis, you add a lot of pressure, it actually dewaters a bit, and that water causes melting of the mantle that then creates magma. And anytime you've got something hot, right, it's going to rise up. Hot things are more buoyant than cold things. And so that molten magma rises up and rises up all the way through the continental crust of the South American plate. And we have a huge volcanic chain here all along the Chilean margin. So from north to south. And that's what we're studying. Volcanoes. Anything you want to add to that, Seb? We've been talking a lot about volcanoes. We haven't really given like the big picture, but that's the big picture of why we have volcanoes in this area and why we have earthquakes, deepest, biggest, highest magnitude earthquakes because of that subduction zone. We have another geologist in the room, but this is a very special geologist, Jill Pelto. She is a glacial geologist who also has a degree in art and is here as our artist at sea, and she makes amazing artwork. We were talking about her a little bit earlier. But Jill, would you like to add something to this discussion about volcanism in our area of southern Chile?
Sure. I just came down from a talk, so I missed that discussion.
Sorry.
What was the context of the discussion?
Just talking about subduction.
Well, I would say my background more is in glacial landforms and deposits. And so the neat parallels of working here are learning a little bit about what we might be able to see on the seafloor where it was once glaciated here. And so whether that's like a moraine where the glacier ended, or scour marks or something like that. But yeah, I'm really more learning about the history of this part of the world for the first time, which has been really neat. So
I'm alive.
my role as the artist here is to get to create paintings about the science that's going on, which is really awesome because a lot of times doing field work in the past and on science expeditions, usually that the focus is the science, which I love, but it feels like a joy to be able to have a little bit more of a step back from it, still be immersed in it, but be able to spend time, most of my time creating art about it and brainstorming how to tell these stories. So that's what I've been doing, and
it's really beautiful, Jill.
Thank you. So yeah, the piece I'm working on right now, I'm just in the sketching phase, but it's going to show like the region that we're sampling right now. It's going to show the delta kind of coming down from the town of Chaiten and the subsurface of that delta that we're taking sediment samples of right now. And then I'm going to go up above the ocean to the town itself and to the volcano. That's a big part of the story of this landscape. And so it's going to kind of be a whole landscape, kind of showing how this coast has changed, showing the subbottom and how dynamic that is. And one special thing that I don't always get to include or haven't always thought about including is some of the kind of cultural identity of this landscape. And I feel like it's a perfect time to do that because we have many Chileans on board, but like specifically a teacher from this region who can really speak to the culture here and what their beliefs are around the land and the spirits. And she's been kind enough to share that in detail with all of us. And
that's Danny Levinyanko. Yeah. She's been really great. She talked day before yesterday as well on the Divestream.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks to her and other sharing, I'll be incorporating some of those spirits into my painting, which I just started to paint one of them.
That's really amazing. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
Maybe you can share with everyone the media that you use and why that's your preferred media.
Yeah, for I'm using watercolor paints primarily with some colored pencils, and watercolor has been my preferred media for a long time, mainly from doing science fieldwork because it's so easy to bring. Like it can pack down really small. Once it dries, you can just re-wet it and it's ready to use again. Unlike acrylic paint, if it dries, it's done.
Mm-hmm. Then you're done.
Yeah, you can never get it going again. So, so I started bringing it with me. Actually, doing glacier fieldwork with my dad, which I started joining him for as a teenager. And so I would bring a little kit with me, so it was easy to do, and just kind of paint the landscape. And so that ended up developing a style with the watercolor, feeling like the most confident with that versus like other types of art. And so that's what I have with me now, and I have like a kind of slower detailed process of working, where I start with a sketch and really create my whole scene before I add the color on top. And so I'll be sharing all of that art online as I complete it, and I'll be, my goal is to help more people learn about the research they're doing. That's the point of trying to show it, and help people understand it and how cool it is, how important it is, and tell stories about how we're collecting samples, how we're doing the mapping, what we're finding from those things, and then some of the reasons why that matters. So I think art is really good at communicator and has a lot of beauty in it. It can have a lot of the emotional stories about these places and why them changing matters. And so it's definitely been amazing to do.
Sorry, we're trying to brush off some of the dirt from the fibercord platform as we're moving, and there's worms that are sticking up out of it. Polychaetes, right, John? I mean, I don't know how to log that. But Jill, that was a great explanation of really why visual arts are so important to science, to explaining what we're doing in a way that goes beyond some of our boring lecture style explanations. So I'm really excited about a lot of the artwork that Jill has already been creating. Jill, can you share how you've already started to share your artwork with some of the children from this area?
Yeah, so yesterday all day we had 16 different schools, 94 students from all over remote towns in the region come on board the ship kind of in different waves, which was really organized by Rodrigo, who's one of the lead scientists here and is in the room, and then a team that he assembled to help him with that, of students. So that was really incredible outreach and such a high impact for all those 94 students to get to come on board. And what I got to do is be kind of part of their introduction when they first came onto the boat and came up to the bridge, which is at the top and where the captain is, and meet the captain. And I had my art set up there for them to see with some labels in Spanish, because unfortunately I don't speak Spanish, so I can't communicate with them as well. And so I had a translator sharing a little bit more details about my work, and then we were doing a few things. We had made name tags that had a crop of my art, of a painting of the Falcor 2, the boat we're on, for some of the name tags that they got. And then the other piece of my painting that the name tags was the Sebastian that is down, that you're looking at right now. And so
really cool.
And so the kids
the students really like them, and with their own names painted on them.
Yeah. So it was fun. A bunch of people helped me make those, and then most of the students, like the younger students at least, brought a fish that they had painted, and after they saw me, I was going and gluing that fish onto these envelopes I painted for them. And then in those envelopes were also some other, what was a sticker about the project, and then this cool necklace, an idea that Becky had to create, and folks helped create this little vial filled with sediment.
We had extra centrifuge tubes, micro centrifuge tubes. We filled them up with tephra from the seafloor and made necklaces out of them.
So they got some really cool like physical takeaways, and so it was really neat getting to do that. And I also, my plan with the painting that I was describing, showing the town of Chaiten, the volcano, and the ocean, and their spiritual figures. Once I finish that, my plan is to send copies to the teacher here, Danny that she can distribute to the schools if that's the best way to do it. But either way, get the opportunity for them to have a copy since they just kind of saw at the beginning stages, and it's about their region and culture and the landscape here.
Really, really cool work, Jill.
Thank you.
So, like Jill said, she's done a lot of really cool artwork about climate change, the history of climate from geological perspectives, and now she's incorporating even more cultural history into those art pieces that she's producing here for southern Chile. So, for a project here in southern Chile. So, be on the lookout and definitely look her up because I know I want to walk away with some of your prints.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We're about halfway there. I know I put you on the spot about subduction, but do you want to talk any more about glaciers?
I feel like even though my master's work was around Antarctica, I feel like my knowledge my background is mainly around mountain glaciers.
Yeah.
And so, which is what we have here. I live in a place that has some parallels. I live near the coast, and there's a series of big glaciated volcanoes. This is in Washington State in the United States. And the glacier science field work that I do, that I mentioned, that I do with my dad is a lot of the glaciers we go on, for example, on Mount Baker, which is one of the big Cascade volcanoes in Washington. And so it's been interesting to think about the parallels of the work we're doing here, the connection of the retreating glaciers, volcanism, and then the connection of those places to the ocean. Because right now we're getting to witness such rapid change, and that's really emotional to see and how it impacts people.
Yes.
I was just doing that work in August, right before this trip, and it was a tough summer there. I'm now curious to learn more about the glaciers, the status of the glaciers in Chile. I'm sure, though, that the story is very similar, where there's a lot of rapid retreat happening.
Yes.
And that's the story around the world. So, but one thing is that we're investigating too is how that retreat can impact volcanism when that ice is offloaded from the mountain. So,
yeah, very good point there. Can you also share a little bit about Time magazine?
Yeah. So my biggest professional achievement has been doing a cover for Time magazine, which was crazy to get to do, and that was in 2020 in July, and they do every July a climate themed issue, which is great. All the stories, everything is about different topics around climate change globally. And so the cover that I designed was kind of near the beginning of when the pandemic was starting to really increase. And so that was a story I was thinking about too. But basically I wanted to communicate with the cover art I made a lot of big global climate data. And so I had a graph about sea level rise from 1880 to present. I had a graph about decreasing ice on land, so the ice sheets and mountain glaciers. I had a graph about increasing use of renewable energy for the world to show some positive change. A graph about increasing global temperature, and then finally one about our increasing use of fossil fuels with a slight dip in that use, as represented by when the pandemic really started, and there was a lot less, whether it was plane travel, air or plane and car travel, or industry in general, just globally, that made a impact on the amount of use of fossil fuels. And so obviously it's gone up again since, but it did show that if we were to act on a big scale globally, it's going to really quickly make a huge difference.
Yeah. And so each one of these graphs that you're talking about, you have this beautiful, it's almost like a pattern, but not quite, displaying each one of those parameters kind of representatively with environments. Like for the ice loss, for example, you have the ice and the landscape, and with the renewable increase, you have trees representing, you know, kind of we're going green, right?
Yeah.
And then for the CO2 emissions graph, it looks kind of like a mountain.
Yeah.
In the background, it's like a beautiful landscape.
Yeah.
But it's all graphs that are communicating how things have changed and how they're changing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Trying to show people that visual of like, this is how much change has happened just, you know, since the Industrial Revolution. And so I think people being able to lay eyes on that, and understand that context is really important. And so it's just the reality of what's happening. And my goal is not to have that be overwhelming. That probably will be some people's response, but I tried to also make climate art about action and hope, because those stories are really important too. And that's why even just putting in the one renewable graph was important to me.
It makes a difference.
And as much as an honor as the cover was, I do have the critique of the name of the feature being One Last Chance, because that's not true. There's not like one last chance, and that was 4 years ago. And they said, you know, but those kind of alarmist titles I think can be harmful.
Yeah.
But
The glacier I study is called the Doomsday Glacier.
Oh, yeah.
Rolling Stone journalist dubbed it the Doomsday Glacier.
Yeah.
But, you know, it would kind of be a doomsday scenario if it all melted.
Yeah.
It would raise sea levels very rapidly over the next couple of decades to, you know, 2100. We would see really, really, really rapid sea level rise that we haven't experienced for a few thousand years. The last time we had sea level rise as high as it is right now was about 8,000 years ago during an extreme sea level rise event. So, yeah, we don't want to say it's too dire, but at the same time, it is pretty serious.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's serious. And so I think in communicating about it, like then sharing with people what can be helpful to learn about is kind of just like maybe what's happening local to you and being engaged with that, because sometimes the global picture is a bit is good to be tuned in, but it can be a bit overwhelming. So just what's happening around you and what can you learn about.
Yeah, being aware.
Yeah, being aware. Yeah.
Being aware of the problem, being aware of the complexities of that problem, and being aware of different solutions that have been applied and are being discussed.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully being discussed by decision makers.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like most about your art, just coming back to the Time magazine cover and just your art in general, is that when you look at it, it does look like a beautiful landscape. Like it looks very scenic.
Yeah.
But then if you like look at the detail, you see that it's actually graphs, that it's actually data that you're looking at. And I just find that so fascinating, because there's like different levels of enjoying your art and learning from your art.
Yeah, that's definitely my hope. If folks do take that like another moment, you know, if they just look at the art and see it as something beautiful and don't kind of realize the story, obviously that's fine too. But if they take another moment and look at the graphs and think about them, and you know, if I do show it anywhere or have it online, I'll have a description so that they can, you know, read that paragraph and learn a little about the topics. But I do also, on purpose, weave the graphs into the landscape, like Becky was saying, where you might not initially notice, because I kind of want it to be a part of the scene, part of the story. And so sometimes it does take a moment to see it and notice it. Yep.
Super cool. Thanks,
you.
Jill.
Thank you.
And we are still flying to location. We're almost there. Wonder if anyone in the chat has questions for Jill or for anything that we've talked about thus far. I know I really love art. I guess a fun fact about scientists is that there's a lot of scientists that like to make art, like Jill. Jill, were you kind of on the fence between science and art? Was it a hard choice for you? Or is it just kind of like you were always pursuing both? And
I was always pursuing both, but it was a hard choice because once I just went as far as my master's in climate science, and once I wrapped
which
that,
is really far.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and then
to downplay that.
And which I'm so glad that I did, and but once I realized after that, like, I was going to go more into the direction of art and science communication, I knew I wanted to find ways to still be involved, not just be making art about it, but really be directly involved when it was possible, like to do field work or lab work or be directly around scientists, because that's a community that I obviously still feel a part of. And so that part was a hard choice, but I feel like I also just knew that I had to be the art that I chose.
We still have your toes wet in the science.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I think opportunities like this, like Artists at Sea, writers in residence, right?
Yeah.
This is really, really, really important to communicating the science, to, bringing a perspective that otherwise might be missing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really awesome that SOI was able to have this available. Okay, and there's an artist in the chat. I knew that she would ask a question.
Oh, yay.
My mom is asking you, do you have a web page where you post your artworks?
Yes, I do. It is my name, jillpelto.com. So that's Jill with a J, and then Pelto is Pelto. Yes.
Yeah, so, and as I was saying earlier, there's a lot of scientists who make art. And I think that there's some statistics on this that I read recently about, like, Nobel laureates and the percentage of them that have a hobby that is, some form of art. So visual arts, I think I don't know, I don't want to misquote this, but a significant percentage of those Nobel laureates are actually, or Nobel Prize winners are, like, visual artists. They do that as a hobby, or musicians. That's actually very, very common. I think that's the most common. So creativity is such an essential part of our human experience, both making and admiring, and thinking critically about artwork of all forms.
Yeah, I think creativity should be part of part of any career, anything or job that we do in life, and so that could take any form. So I'm not surprised, because if you're kind of tapping into your creativity in whatever you do, it's going to really enhance it.
Yeah, and what I always tell my students is that geology is a unique science because it's really a creative blend of different sciences, of physics, of chemistry, of biology. So we really use a lot of different tools and concepts to approach complex problems. And that's what you're seeing here. We have a lot of interdisciplinary work going on here, and creative ways in which we're trying to ask and approach the question of how do volcanoes influence the marine environment from so many different perspectives. So having that creative part of your brain turned on is so important to interdisciplinary science, of which geology is very essentially an interdisciplinary science. I should say geosciences, not strictly geology, but the geosciences. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
I'm getting nods
Yes.
in the room. But.
Yes, definitely agree.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, we have, so in the chat, someone has commented on melting of glaciers is sad. Yes, we have a lot of valley glaciers, mountain glaciers that have been rapidly receding in the last few decades. Yeah, some of the greatest examples are here in southern Patagonia, in New Zealand, really around the world. You can see, you know, marcations of like signs of where the glaciers were in prior centuries, like in the 1800s versus today. And it's a really marked increase in the rate of retreat over the recent decades. And there was an IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, that came out about 5 years ago now, that actually stated that this is like such a groundbreaking thing for me. When I was learning climate science, we learned that the greatest contributor to sea level rise is the warming of the ocean. So when you heat up water, like say you're boiling water in a pot, the water is going to take up more space, right? So if you just watch that water level as you're heating up water in a pot, it's going to increase, right? And that's basically what's been happening to the ocean, is that it's heating up. And so the sea level is rising because of what we call thermal expansion of the ocean. And that was the dominant contributor to sea level rise, and that glaciers were second to that. But actually 5 years ago, this report came out that said, oh, actually, glacier melt, ice sheet melt is exceeding thermal expansion of the ocean and its contribution to sea level rise. So we're seeing a lot of dramatic increases and changes globally now. Okay, so now with that, let's come back to southern Chile. We're on the bottom of the seabed, and we have just flown 400 meters from one location offshore of the Yelcho Delta in Chaiten Bay to another location that we want to sample, and we're going to take a push core. So we're logging this push core number 4 on this particular ROV dive, but we are logging this as a new site. So we're about 400 meters from the last site. Took us a while to get here, so let's hope it's worth the trouble. We now have a little changing of the guard. New pilot in command is Zach.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Scott.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. And Chris is again smoothly pulling out a push cord here. Oh yes, we've formed a lot of friendships on this ship already. We've got a comment in the chat about the obvious friendships we have formed. Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We like each other. We're having fun.
Hi, Lucy. Yeah. 3 push cores, 2 vibra cores, nothing else.
I would say that if I knew you were coming out, looking at the easiest stuff first, but that's a lot.
All right, now we have to say goodbye to Mr. Smooth. Chris, thank you. But now we have Joyelle on board. It's going to be push coring for us. All right, we have got 3 push cores to take here. And we're hoping that the visibility improves while we're sitting here just for a minute, letting things settle out. And we can see the sediment character here, very similar to before. It's a lot of mud, and those holes in the mud are likely occupied by critters. And what we just saw as we were flying across with some mud that got stuck on the front of the ROV is that there's a bunch of worms in here. Actually, when we push these in, you can see some of those holes just next to where we're coring, a little poof of sediment comes out of them. So these holes seem to be connected from within the sediment to the surface. And it's most likely worms living there, but probably some other things too. We hope forams, little tiny sand-sized zooplankton and benthos are living here too, because they are made of calcite, which has carbon in it, which allows us to carbon date these sediment layers. Oop, oop, oop. Oh, look at that. I would note here, guys, it's got a very good sediment water interface. It's beautiful. Don't plop, don't plop, don't plop, don't plop. Okay, don't plop. No, don't. No ploppy. No ploppy today, please. Okay. Joyelle is just as smooth as Chris. This is like a moonwalk right here that he's doing. He has to move it very slowly and carefully so it doesn't all fall out. Okay, I think it's still okay. A little bit plopped. Okay, we are noting the plopping on our event log. It happens. The plops are real, people. I don't know what else to say. I'm trying to be entertaining. I know my kids are watching and giggling, so. All right, number 4. So this is UC 019.
Yeah.
A.
Exactly.
Perfect. We're all on board, all on the same page with our numbering, labeling scheme, our event logging scheme. So Joyelle, who's now operating the arm of the ROV Sebastian right now, very capable ROV pilot. Little known fact, he used to be a teacher. A teacher of 5th and 6th graders in Mexico. See? Yep, in Mexico. And yesterday we had, like we were just telling you guys, almost 100 kids come on board the ship. And a series of groups. So we had smaller groups per each little location where we were talking about the science, showing them the ship. But yeah, he was explaining to the kids the ROV and how it works. And that was, I think, really rewarding for him. Really, wouldn't you say, Joyelle? I don't want to speak for you. Okay, we got that bubble out of there. Good, good. Yeah, we all had a lot of fun sharing the science with kids. And of course, the engineering too. This is really what you're watching here is a big feat in engineering. It's pretty cool. Look at all the, okay, do you guys see all the poofs of sediment coming out of the holes like far from where we're pushing the core in? Yeah. Yeah, it's a network. So here I guess we could talk a little bit about bioturbation. So critters that live in the sediment sometimes will move around in that sediment and mess up our layering. Oh no, don't plop. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet just for a second. No ploppage, please. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do that one again. Yeah. I think some of this is, subtle differences in the type of sediment and the type of clays, perhaps, how cohesive they are, how much they like to stick together from one site to the next. It may be very subtle, but I think it makes a difference. Because the last site on the same dive, it looked very similar on the seabed, but we had 3 easy push cores. Yeah, no plop on the first one. Well, the second one had a little bit of an issue, but the second try we got it easily.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
This one's looking good. It's looking great. I think Joyelle's having to move quickly and smoothly, which is, I think, a lot harder than it looks. So he is actually, with 2 hands, operating. It's sort of like a joystick, but it's way more complicated. Sort of looks like the robot arm. It's like a miniature robot arm that he's operating, and very, very gently moving different parts of it that tell the robot arm on the ROV Sebastian to move in different directions and at different speeds. Gotta have really good hand-eye coordination. Awesome. That's a good one. We should note that in the log, that would be a good one to archive, maybe. The sediment water interface was not as good as the first one, but
It was okay.
all right, and now we're going for the third push core. Trying to grab the top of it here. So while Joyelle is moving the robotic arm and pushing these plastic tubes into the sediment, Zach is moving the camera so he has a good view of what he's doing, and he's getting the lighting just right so that we can see what we're doing here. Okay, nice little push into the sediment. Seems like there's no resistance at all here.
If you're an arm guy, you also gotta be nice to the pilot because they can make you look real bad. Or really good, depending on the signal.
Yeah. Yeah, Zach's making him look really good here. Oh, that looks like a beautiful core. Oh,
That's nice.
that's a nice one. Perfect. The best. Oh, wow. Okay. Looks like maybe 70% 70. Okay. Let's clap for that one as well. That was very smooth work. Smooth, short work of it.
We said that one's probably pretty good for sampling.
I think that one would be great, especially for the water.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
like
that
the
one.
best sediment water interface. Could sample that. We are Vibreport. No scooping. All right, so now we're pulling out the rack. Gonna pick up one of these metal tubes that's in the left side of your screen.
Can you put this?
Thank you, Sophia.
camera over here?
This is number 4, and it's the third one.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We need that one that was there too. Sorry. Can you use that one there and that other one there?
Yes.
That our plant can. Which course did you guys do already? The two, the outer ones?
The 2 outer ones in position 1 and 3 are full of mud.
So 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
Hey, so sorry to be weirdo, but do you mind putting those two swapped?
Sure. How's it? Why is it you being a weirdo?
Just 'cause I gotta operate down. My old man eyes can't see quite good. Perfect, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
I'm just gonna code that into your stream deck.
You can get multiple unlocks, but
Jacob. The chat. It's not on that side.
Roll Tide.
Nicely done. Who you just heard from saying Roll Tide is our student Jacob Helgeson from University of Alabama. He just started his master's. He's logging these events right now. Alright, so we're just trying to unlock this little lever here that's holding our cores in place. We're going to pick up that number 4 tube, and hopefully when we're done it will be full of mud. Nice layered mud. And hopefully some of those layers contain the ash that came from the eruption of Chaiten volcano about 16 years ago. 2008. I can do math. 16 years ago. I know. Oh. It was like, I'm still scrolling. I still feel like the 90s was recent, you know? That's...
I know, there's people that are like, wow, you were born before this century.
Yeah. That's my kids. That's what my kids say.
Before the internet.
Hmm. Yeah, we actually had to remember and think about where we were going. Yeah, we had to use maps, atlases.
Uphill both ways in the snow. Oh, yeah.
What's it? Oh, Red Book guide? Huh.
I still kind of want to take my kids on a road trip one time with no GPS, but I think it's probably more fun.
It's fun in theory.
But it's fun 'cause you have no idea what you're going to find.
Yeah. You couldn't just go on Google and research everything about your route, anything you would encounter. But also, you weren't constantly checking email and responding to messages. So that sounds nice. Let's be completely unplugged. Okay, and what you're seeing now is we're getting the Vibracore tube, 2 meter aluminum tube, like a big metal straw with teeth on the bottom of it that hold the sediment in place after we fill it up. Putting it onto the Vibracoring platform. I'm gonna clamp down on it. Can't really see the clamp from either one of these views, but it's there. I'm gonna hold it in place.
You ready to fly? These little shrimp are krilling me.
Okay, so what we did, guys, on the last time, is we pushed it in as far as it would go, and then we did. Yeah, I think we want to push it in as far as it will go, and then we'll vibrate. Seems to work. Be systematic about it. Any resistance at all? None. Mm. Okay, so we're gonna open up the clamp.
Can you vibrate to loosen my clamp off because it gets stuck? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna open it up, bring it back up to the top of the tube. Now it's about halfway in. We're gonna push it in some more. Okay, so it's off the clamp. So we just let go of, we push it into the sediment with this thing that's moving up and down in the right hand side of your screen. Well, and in the left hand side of your screen. You can see a little better from above. And now we're going all the way up to the top as far as we can go. Not quite to the top of the tube, but as far as we can go with the coring, with the Vibracoring platform. And we're gonna grab it again with a clamp. There we go. Just had to get it right into place there with the robotic arm, and now we're gonna push it in some more. So we grab the top of it, now we're pushing it down, and you can see that white part, that valve at the top of the tube, going right down to the surface. Okay, we're gonna have to do it again. It's a 2 meter long tube, so a little over 6 feet. Okay. All right, in this last part, we can vibrate. What do you think, Seb? Should we just push it and see?
We could, I mean, we could either 8 feet vibrating or
Mhm.
we could try and see if this makes any difference in terms of
Yeah.
compaction and disruption.
Okay.
So vibrate or no?
We've been
If it'll
vibrating this
still push-
uppermost
If
part.
it'll still push in, we can still
All right, let's push in and let's just see how resistant it is.
It's resistant, but it's go.
Okay. It's resisting, but it's going.
smooth as butter.
Right now it's a little bit cold butter,
Yeah.
but
And they're fine when it stops, but I don't know if that's the bottom line.
can we lift up just a little bit more with the clamp and push down even more?
We could, yeah. As far as we go, it'd be great.
And
So how much more I've got there?
okay, we're gonna try.
I don't want to knock the thing off, you know?
Yes. Don't want to knock the valve off. Is it pushing in, or do we need to vibrate it? It's got some resistance now. Okay.
So we got vibration.
I think we're gonna vibrate. Yeah, let's vibrate. If you guys are
Chris is gonna look
Good.
at the whole thing with the arm cam.
okay. We now have a 3-man team for the ROV. So Chris is back in the mission control with us, and he's gonna help us get a better view with a camera that's on the right arm of the ROV Sebastian here. Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Probably grab a little bit harder if you want.
Is it possible to show that camera view, Sophia?
Which one?
Can you show the right arm cam there?
Alright, that's weight on it now.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to vibe a little more.
Let's vibe.
That's fine. Yeah.
That's my vibe. There we go. There's the right arm camera, and you can see we're having to vibrate it to get it all the way down. And it's really resisting now, huh? All right.
Good?
I think that's good.
That was about
Hopefully
10 centimeters, right? Just the last
10 the last 10 centimeters at the top. So I would say, yeah, well, it's a
There's
10
a
centimeters
waist with that at the top, plus the ground.
plus
and
the-
you would
the
use about 20, I'd say.
20, yeah, so I'd say 1.8.
Okay.
All right. BC 019A,
Yep.
which is number 4,
Yep.
and then 1.8 meters recovered, we hope.
Shimmy shake there.
So that's about 90% recovery.
One more after this.
Pushed.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Christopher. Push to, we pushed to about 1.6, huh? And then we vibe the rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was no resistance for like the upper 1.4, something like that. Okay?
Yes.
So what we're hoping that means is that we've got mud at the top. You can see the mud on the surface. That wouldn't really present any resistance for the vibrocore. You could just push it in, right? Just like the push cores. But if we start to have more resistance, that could mean that we have more compacted clays, more cohesive clays, maybe a different unit, sort of what we're hoping for, maybe a sandier unit, coarser material, maybe indicating a higher energy event with coarser particles getting out into this part of the delta. We're a little bit distal from the Yelcho Delta on the southern side of the Bay of Chaiten, which again is on the Pacific side of southern Chile, southern South America in Chile, in Patagonia. Okay, so we're pulling the vibracore out.
Yeah, keep this out.
Yeah.
Do we see any like muddy water coming out of the valve during that last part of the push, last part of the vibration? Okay. Okay.
Open. All you.
Okay, and now we're just bringing our vibracore back over to the rack.
Remember, you can put it in two if that's easier too.
You can see this is really soft sediment, so the front of the rack there is kind of pushed into a bit of mud. Sunk in a little bit since we sat down on the seafloor 20 some minutes ago. I guess I should also comment, because this was a big discussion in our last dive, the salinity of the water here. So we have about 33 PSU here, so it's pretty fresh, but not too fresh. In our earlier dive, earlier today, we had a PSU reading of 3 and 6 on the way up, and we were debating, and I thought, man, is that real? Could that be real? Because that would be what you see in a river, very, very fresh, at 3 PSU as opposed to 30 PSU. So we debated that, and we found out there was a little problem, fixable problem, with the salinity meter on the ROV. We promptly fixed it, and now we have a reading that we can trust. But just for safe measure, we also sent down another device through the water column to measure the salinity and temperature changes from the surface of the water all the way to the seafloor. And that additional device that we use is called a CTD, conductivity temperature depth is what that stands for. And it measures temperature and salinity with depth in the water column, as well as other parameters. So we've got a fluorimeter on there that's telling us about fluorescence. It tells us about how much phytoplankton we have producing chlorophyll A in the water column. Yeah, we sent one down right after that dive just to be sure. And yeah, the readings on the last dive were definitely incorrect. So, but we know exactly what they should be. We actually have an independent measure as well on the ROV, but we fixed the problem that we had on the last dive. So yeah, here we are looking at pretty fresh water at 33 PSU. If you're out in the open ocean, you're talking 35 to 39 PSU, somewhere in that range. Got a lot of river influence here. That's making it a little fresher. We have two major rivers that actually drain into this bay. The Rio Blanco on the northern side and the Rio Yelcho on the southern side. And the Rio Blanco goes right through the town of Chaiten.
Do you want a CTD with this stuff?
You think we need it?
I think we haven't done one.
In this exact area.
That's right.
Okay.
Currents.
Did Claudia have any?
I mean, I guess
Input on that?
we have this data there, don't we?
We have this data.
Yeah.
We have the bottom water data, but we don't have fluorimeter, so we don't know about the chlorophyll max here. What's that?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Mm.
We have a lot of CTDs in the
We
bay
have
now.
so many CTDs in this bay. I would like to get Claudia's opinion as a oceanography, kind of lead, because it would be for her thesis data if we were to gather one here. I guess one of the useful things for the geology team would be to see if we have any sediment plumes within the water column. Being on the southern side of the bay, maybe telling us more about the Yelcho. But we're not really at a good time. Like, you would want to do it right after a big rain event.
It's not quite lined up.
I think we've probably got those pretty nearby, haven't we?
Yeah, we have quite a few in this area.
We moved the ROV up between these two.
No,
bays.
we need to. I think they're just getting it in position, and then we're going to pick up. We kind of have sunk into the seafloor a bit here.
Yeah, you can see. Box disappeared.
Yeah.
Can't see the gate.
Close. Let me try and check it out. So that's
New message,
starboard
Claudia.
one. Starboard one. All right, so I'm gonna check that one up. Starboard one.
Okay, so we've just gotten the next fiber core tube in position on the rack. Might tap it a little bit to get the gunk off. Pick up and set down in a new spot. Oh, and this is really fun. While we're down here in mission control staring at the seafloor, our colleagues have just messaged us that the sun is out. It's a beautiful day here in the Bay of Chaiten. Oh, and now Sophia is a mind reader over there. She's just put up a view from the ship, I think from the port side of the ship, starboard side of the ship, looking towards the town of Chaiten. And you can see, like, there's some clouds. You can really see that mountain range there, and you can see some of the peaks, which some of them are volcanoes. Let's see, there's the town of Chaiten, so she's kind of focused there on the town of Chaiten. It's like the little tiny line of small buildings there along the shoreline in the foreground. So it's got mountains behind it, glaciers, and one of those peaks, I think to the left,
That one?
it's gonna be the Volcanic. I don't think that's it.
Also, I'm not a mind reader. I am listening.
The Chaiten volcano is what we're trying to get in view. But we're kind of multitasking here. So we're looking at the seafloor and we're looking out at this view of Chaiten, with the sun coming out. And of course, we're on the research vessel Falcor 2 with the Schmidt Ocean Institute. So you can see what it looks like from the vessel and that little inset in the upper right. It's really beautiful. There's abundant forests all along these hills here, and at the very peaks of some of them you can see snow accumulating. That one right there. And very thin, very thin glaciers. I'm not even sure I would call that a glacier. That ice coming down. A little tiny valley forming in the mountain there. Super cool. You can see evidence of landslides where there's no trees there. Kind of looks like a bald surface. So this is very steep sided topography here.
Stuck on that one. So we're gonna have to move the pipe out of there, I think. It's stuck on the left side.
So we're working on the vibrocore.
You're gonna have to tap it from the left side. Roll it
Just trying to get it in position. Ooh, just had to tap it a little bit. Uh-oh. Can still pick that up.
At least we know where I was going. Afraid this thing's out of commission.
Claudia has said we don't need a CTD here because we're close to a previous CTD and we're in low tide. So
Roll tide.
roll tide, low tide, roll tide. So the person I'm referring to right now, she's not in the room with us. She's just a couple of doors over, looking at all the oceanographic data collected from that device I was talking about, CTD. And we were asking her if she wants a CTD. She said no, we already have one pretty close to here, so we should be fine. But her name is Claudia Morales, and she's a student at the Universidad de Valparaiso. And her thesis project is focused on the oceanography of this basin. So she's really the one we want to know. Do you need more samples? Do you need more profiles of the water here, of the temperature and salinity change with depth? Right. And it is unusual for her to say no to that. If you ask her for a CTD, she usually smiles really large, huge smile and says, yes, please.
Can't close by these.
Let's see.
People enjoying the scenery.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to tap.
Oh, where is it? Oh, yes.
Testing the
Nice
zoom on
mountain
the,
scenery.
on the cameras.
Yeah, it's cool.
I didn't know I could zoom in that much. Look at this. Ready? Ready? I could just go whoop straight onto the glacier.
Wow, that's cool.
That's some crazy zoom. Like I can't claim.
That's a good zoom.
It's kinda scary.
Yeah, so if you look up the town of Chaiten, that's actually something you'll see a lot in images. So it's kind of a touristy town locally. It's a really beautiful area. And so sometimes there'd be a little waterfall coming off of that.
Oh, let me
It's
see
really
if I
pretty.
can find that other waterfall. Because there's a waterfall here. Oh my
Oh, nice, nice. We haven't picked up and moved. Have we picked up and moved? No, we have not. We're just trying to get it in position.
There.
Yeah, like a little fresh spot there. Wow.
How far do you want to move?
There's
See
the
what
waterfall.
forest looks like about 5 meters is fine to move about 5 meters. Oh, there's a waterfall. Oh my gosh, Sophia, that's amazing.
I've been staring at these mountains the
Oh my
last few
gosh.
days.
That's an amazing zoom on the camera.
You can see the
On the
roll of the
ship.
ship. I'm trying to compensate.
Yeah, the
with
ship is
joystick, but-
moving.
Should that just go into activity?
Probably about, yeah.
Okay.
Better.
You think we've got some mess at the top?
Uh,
Better like that, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Do one this.
Do what we can.
I'm only about a little bit, you said a meter, right?
5 meter. Well, okay, a meter's fine. Just a new hole. We need a new hole.
All right, so go ahead and move.
Yes, please.
You gotta remember to lock that thing on the left too. You know what I mean? On the rack.
Okay, and so what you're seeing is ROV picking up and moving a bit. We're gonna punch a new hole into the seafloor here with our vibrocore. Oh, there's a crab. Put that in the vent log. Gianluca from the Universidad de Valparaiso is very excited. We've got finally some things on the seafloor instead of just in the seafloor. Visible life.
Alright, control that concept.
Hey, I got you, Chris.
Alright.
What's that? We're still doing the last lap recording, Chris.
Yep.
Zach, let me know.
Good up here.
Float cam. I've totally taken away float cam.
Really good zoom on that.
I know.
Mhm.
I'm kind of obsessed with this.
So now your right hand, little inset there. You're looking at the shoreline just near the town of Chaiten. Oh, you can even see the rocks. Wow. Little houses. When we were out on the back deck looking out there, we saw penguins. We saw little penguins swimming around. Yeah, real penguin.
Today?
Chin strap? Chin strap penguin.
Humboldt.
Oh,
Humboldt.
penguin. Yeah.
Alright.
And then we saw quite a few pelicans. Of course, I love pelicans. Some of my favorite bird. Wow. Pretty amazing zoom. That's so scenic.
Yeah.
Okay, now we got the vibrocore in position. We're in a new spot on the seafloor.
What's that?
Something wrong with our clamp. stand still.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, you have to nudge it again. It's just air in there or something.
So you can see how close we are to the shore here. It's a very near shore site for this ROV dive. So we're in the Bay of Chaiten and we're looking northward towards Chaiten. And the reason it's going up and down like that is because we're on a ship. So the ship is moving a little bit.
And I'm not compensating with my joystick.
Yeah. And Sophia's just kind of like, she's taking a break from trying to compensate for that movement of the ship. So my kids were asking me earlier if I got seasick on this trip. So far, so good. But I have gotten pretty seasick before. On the way to Antarctica, there's some of the highest seas in the world, and the Schmidt Ocean Institute is planning to go to Antarctica at the end of this year. And that'll be the summer season in Antarctica, here in the southern hemisphere, when sea ice is low, so you can access more areas of the Antarctic continent. But yeah, on the way to Antarctica, there's some pretty rough seas. And those sometimes make me sick. But in this case, I haven't gotten sick. We've been in pretty protected waters, like here in the bay. We're pretty far inland. All right, and now we are pushing the second vibrocore. We're just pushing it. We're not vibrating, just pushing it in.
Now it's starting to resist a little.
Okay, it's starting to resist again around, like, what is that? That's a little bit more. That's like 1.6.
Yeah.
Okay.
6.
Yeah, we're gonna have to vibrate.
I approve the vibe of this room.
Okay. It's always okay.
Becky, have you been through Drake's Passage?
Is it? Give a side
Yeah,
view.
that's all it is. So we don't vibrate at all.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Roger.
So we didn't even need to vibrate that one. Pushed all the way in. So again, about 1.8 meters. Yeah, we are all looking forward to seeing the Falcor and the Sebastian in Antarctic waters later this year. It'll be really cool. Literally.
Stick. Look, it's the last one, so I think we're gonna have to mess this clean.
Mm.
There it goes. I mean, just barely touching it.
All right, so we're pulling up the final vibrocore of this dive. Hoping we get good recovery, meaning we get full barrels of mud. And again, we're about 120 meters water depth. So, and you can see how close we are to shore. This is pretty shallow. for, marine waters. Okay, when is the Antarctic trip? I believe it's in December. Is that correct, Sophia?
Sorry, let me just turn my mic on here. Yes, the first one is in December, and then we probably have a couple more planned, but that's still in the works. So, I don't know. But yes, definitely one for December.
And that will be the first time the Falkor has gone to the Southern Ocean.
Correct, yes.
Lots of firsts this year.
Yeah, no kidding.
You guys have been busy.
Yeah. Becca, have you ever been through the Drake's Passage?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so
Tell me about that.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Because I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie.
Okay, I'm not sure that this will calm your nerves.
No, it's okay, tell me.
Okay, so the first time I went down, I was in my early 20s. And we went on a flat bottom ship. Okay, we went on the icebreaker Odin, probably the best icebreaker in the it took a lot to get NSF to work with the Swedish government to get the ship to clear the passages around Antarctica, around the U.S. Antarctic Station. But one of the primary reasons why we really wanted to use that icebreaker was we were trying to go into an area that is always covered in ice, which is the Amundsen Sea. And so this was 2009. We go down there, we go through the Drake Passage on a flat-bottomed ship, which was a lot, but I didn't get sick. And then we got into the Amundsen Sea on this icebreaker that's meant to basically operate in sea ice, and sea ice is the top of the ocean water that's frozen, so it's not like an iceberg. It's very thin in comparison to an iceberg. And there was no sea ice. It was crazy. It actually made operations a little bit more challenging. But in any case, I didn't get sick at all, and I was even working at the microscope, counting tiny little shells called foraminifera on the way back through the Drake Passage, and I was very proud of this. And so when I went as a professor, 10 years later, in 2019, I was telling my students, oh yeah, I have an iron belly. I never get sick, and I can work at the microscope in the Drake Passage. I was being I had a lot of bravado, like new professor. And yeah, in 2019, I got so ill. I was so sick that I actually popped a blood vessel in my eye.
Oh no.
Yeah, from losing my lunch so many times.
Ouch.
Yeah. So I've learned to be humble and not brag and take lots of seasickness medicine. But I really just like ginger. I feel like ginger is the best when you're feeling
definitely
sick to your stomach. So I brought like a huge bag of seasickness medicine for everybody on this trip. And so far, so good. I think a few people were getting sick there for a while, but they have since recovered and have gotten their sea legs. So when we get out into more open waters of the Corcovado Gulf, hopefully no one gets sick. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Yeah, yikes. That was not fun being that sick. It's really hard to work when you feel sick like that.
Yeah, we always say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, so we're coming up. You can see in the upper right-hand screen, Sophia's put up a little view of the side of the ship, showing the floats of the umbilical of the ROV Sebastian as it connects to the RV research vessel Falkor 2. So this will help in recovering the ROV Sebastian as it's coming up to the ship to be reunited with us at the surface, bringing us beautiful samples of mud and hopefully some layers of ash and some little critters remains of little critters just below and above ash layers. This is what we're hoping for.
Amazing. Honestly, I think that's an amazing end to the narration because unfortunately we do have to go now.
Yes, so thank
because
you,
the
everyone.
float's on surface. That was literally a perfect way to end.
Awesome.
Not to cut you off, but it was perfect. All right, we'll have to go now. When's the next dive, Becky?
Release command there?
Do you know?
I'm not exactly sure.
That's fine.
We are at probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Because it's late today.
Yeah.
But we have a couple more dives planned in the Bay of Chaiten, so I hope everyone will join for that.
Perfect. All right. I hope everybody takes care. Has a good evening, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. Cool.
See you guys. Hasta luego.
Perfect. All right. Bye.